Welcome back to the Fitness Blueprint Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Jackson Adamowitz, and today we are talking about all things motivation. When it comes to motivation for exercise, a lot of people don't realize that even the most fit people, even the healthiest people that you know, go through waves of high motivation and low motivation. But today, I'm bringing in an expert to talk about all things motivation, how to build motivation, how to maintain motivation, and strategies for setting up yourself for success in your fitness journey in order to build and maintain that motivation no matter what happens. Today we're joined by Dr. Sabrena Jo. She has decades of experience helping people find ways to become physically active, from working one-on-one with clients to leading group fitness classes to teaching and developing curricula at universities. Dr. Jo has always had a passion for supporting people as they start and maintain a physically active lifestyle. She's a graduate from the University of Kansas, and her research interests include understanding how the motivational climate influences optimal experiences for participants in various exercise settings. Dr. Jo has a PhD in psychology of health and physical activity. She has a master's degree in kinesiology, a bachelor's degree in exercise science. She's a national board certified health and wellness coach. She's a Mayo Clinic certified wellness coach, and she is an ACE certified health coach, ACE certified personal trainer, and ACE certified group fitness instructor. So without further ado, we will begin our discussion with Dr. Sabrena Jo about all things motivation and exercise. So, first question for you, how do you define motivation?
Good question. Just getting right into it. I think of motivation from the behavioral sense. It's really the emotions and feelings and thoughts related to why people do things. And from my studies and my research, I think of this continuum of motivation, whether it's extrinsic or intrinsic. So extrinsic being you have motivations to do things that are external to yourself, like there's a reward involved, or someone told you that you better do it, or there'll be a punishment involved. But then that goes all the way up to the highest quality of motivation for people doing things, and that would be intrinsic, or doing something because you really want to do it yourself, like you see value in it and you find it just either enjoyable or highly rewarding in and of itself. So that's a very long answer for motivation, but there's a continuum of quality. And in my work, when I'm helping people, I'm always trying to help them understand and strive toward that intrinsic or that really high quality motivation.
Absolutely. And for somebody who's looking to build that internal or intrinsic motivation, how do you work with individuals or recommend that they build up that motivation? Maybe they don't think they have enough motivation, or maybe they're just trying to find it. How do you help them get to that point?
My experience and my practical application of helping people with motivation really comes from a theory called self-determination theory, which, if you think about it, the name is pretty apt, because what it means is people who have the highest chance of success with completing something because they're highly motivated are doing it because it's self-determined. They themselves decided, this is important to me, I'm going to do it. And so there's this whole theory based around motivation called self-determination theory. It's actually what I did my PhD dissertation and research on. And there's a very large body of evidence for decades that supports this type of high quality motivation through really understanding, in my view, three basic things. So it's my long-winded way to get around to your answer to your question, which is I try to help people understand that if there's these three things, according to the self-determination theory, called the basic psychological needs. And if you can really meet those needs, you've got a much higher chance of being motivated and actually completing what you set out to do. And so those three basic psychological needs are autonomy, competence, and relatedness. And if I can figure out a way to help my clients not only understand what those mean, but just actually live those, practices as they're thinking about performing the tasks they want to do. And most times it's becoming more physically active or sticking to an exercise program, then they have, in my experience, and the research would say that a better chance of actually completing the task. So I can define briefly what those things mean because
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
may not be familiar to most people. So in terms, the first thing I said was autonomy. So that means that you're engaging in an activity not because of external pressure or control, but you're doing it because you want to do it. The next one is competence, and that just indicates that whatever you're doing it at a level that offers optimal challenge and also some really good relative and relevant feedback that allows you to either change what you're doing or keep what you're doing so that you can get better and better at it. So you get more competence. And then lastly, there's this relatedness that that typically always involves other humans being in the mix. So if I can help my clients feel like there's a sense of belonging or a sense of connectedness to another person while they're performing the task that they're trying to get motivated to perform, usually it's exercise, then I find that they're more motivated to not only start but stick with exercise or physical activity.
Okay. So if I'm kind of breaking that down a little bit, autonomy is more like your personal control over something. Competence is you're learning more and more about whatever topic it is. For this example for this podcast, we'll just use exercising in general. So
Yeah.
learning more about fitness, exercise, your body, your overall health. And then you have that last component, relatedness. Yes, one of the
Yeah.
most important ones, right? Finding
Yeah.
a group of people or individuals, or maybe it's a coach or somebody
Mhm.
that you know who might share a similar goal or might have good information about achieving your goal. Is that pretty accurate?
Very accurate. Yes.
Okay,
That's a
okay.
great way to think about it.
Fantastic. So let's say I am just starting out my fitness journey and I have built up enough of those basic psychological needs and I'm ready to get started. I get started. I'm doing pretty well for the first few weeks, but then some minor or major life event happens and all of a sudden I'm kind of at a stalling point. Maybe I can't get to the gym, or maybe I kind of fall off the workout routine for a week or two, and all of a sudden that motivation kind of stagnates or falls off the cliff. What do I do in that case?
If I'm coaching this person, um, I try to bring it back to their their values and helping them reiterate why they started this journey in the first place. And what's interesting about the psychology of motivation is that autonomy factor is huge. Like we have to be able to allow people to change their minds and to do experiments with things and then realize, you know what, I didn't like that as much as I thought I would. So for example, let's say a person starts this exercise program that we just spoke of, and they started off really well, and they were going to the gym 3 to 4 times a week, and they were doing, a big beginner level basic um, resistance training workout along with some cardiorespiratory exercise or aerobic exercise in addition to that. And things were going pretty smoothly for a couple of weeks. And then, as you mentioned, something happens, life gets in the way, and they're not doing it as much, and they're kind of not um, performing the same frequency as they had set out to do. So the first thing I do is I really start to dig into what happened, not only just in their life, but kind of psychologically, like what are their thoughts and feelings around why they don't really feel like going to the gym as much anymore. Sure, life gets in the way. And also, could it have been that the exercise routine was too much, too fast? They actually didn't enjoy the way their body felt before, during, and after doing this. Could it help if we explored other opportunities to be active? It doesn't have to be inside of a gym. And so these are the kinds of questions that I ask. And sometimes the answer simply is, actually, I just got a promotion at work and my life changed completely. And now I only have 1 day a week I can go to the gym. And that's legitimate. And then we just work around that. But what I try to help people see as soon as possible is that if you start a program and then you kind of wane, or you veer off, or you don't find it as enjoyable as you thought you would, that's not failure. And that if we have to think of another route or provide different types of activities that fit better into your life now than versus when we made all these great goals, that's not failure either. That's doing an experiment and adjusting as life unfolds. And I think a lot of times when people, especially if they hire a trainer or a coach, they don't want to disappoint the trainer or the coach, and they feel bad if they don't necessarily follow the program to a T. And I established pretty early on that this whole thing is an experiment and we'll adjust as we go. And I think that gives people more autonomy to change if we have to. Like, you have permission to change.
I love that. And one thing that you said really resonated with me. It's, if you happen to take a week off, or maybe life gets hectic and you can't exercise as much, it's not failure. It's You're still in it. You're not,
Right.
in my opinion and my experience, it's not a true failure, quote unquote failure, unless you fully give up on yourself. Let's say you're just not that motivated that week. That's not failure. So you can still get back into it. You can still get back after it. And so that just really resonated with me. If you had to give somebody some tips, this kind of pertains to what you were talking about with maybe life getting hectic, but I think it could also apply to like plateaus in fitness as well. For somebody who is staying consistent with exercise, but they are losing that level of motivation because they're not seeing the results they want to see, what advice would you give to those individuals?
So an important part of helping somebody introduce exercise that they're struggling to do so, as with most lifestyle behaviors that are challenging, is goal setting. And there's a lot of information and research around like goal setting theory and all that. And that does tie in a little bit to what I'm going to speak about next. But I would say that if and when you have a goal, if you can really make sure that when you set those goals, you considered autonomy, competence, and relatedness, then you're going to be much better off in being flexible and regrouping, starting again, not because you failed, but because you realized that, okay, well, I was doing this for a little bit and now I'm gonna do this for a little bit and see if that's better. So I, I kind of coach my clients when they're goal setting to think about these three things. So for the autonomy piece, when you set goals, you've got to allow some flexibility to adapt to life's ever-changing needs. And that way you remain in control of how you approach this new exercise behavior, and it doesn't feel too rigid or restrictive. And if you have a coach, they can help you along with that. But if you don't have a coach, again, don't beat yourself up for missing your workouts for a week. It's not failure. It's learning from what your schedule offered you that week and hopefully changing and adapting. So if we're goal setting for around the competence piece, you want to craft your goals in such a way that allows you to build competence at the new task over time. So you always want to start simple and then work toward more complex tasks. And I really feel my heart goes out to people who are new to exercise and they join a gym and they walk into this new place for the first time, and all they see around them are people who pretty much already know what they're doing. They're using free weights, they're on the machines, they're in the group exercise classroom sweating it out, and here this person is just walking in for the first time and just not knowing even where to begin. And so I feel like if you can get yourself in a situation where you don't feel overwhelmed, where you feel like very confident, like I know exactly what to do, I know I'm going to be successful at it, I'm going to start small and build over time, that to me has a, like there's a higher benefit and a higher opportunity for maintaining your goal if you can start small and build. So let's take that gym situation. Always, even if you're not working with a trainer, even if you just take advantage of, maybe sometimes when you join a new gym, you get a few orientation sessions with a fitness staff person who can kind of take you through and get you at least set up and started. If that's offered to you, take advantage of it because then you feel like, okay, I'm walking in here, I'm confident, I'll have confidence, I'll be able to start small and build. And then the last thing around goal setting, if I'm thinking about that third piece, which is the relatedness piece, so it's that people piece, is you want to think about ways to include doing these things in that make you feel positive and good with other people as part of achieving your goals. And when you feel like you belong and you've got social connections, that really is the thing that keeps us coming back for more. If you've got a workout buddy or someone who's maybe starting this journey at the same time, you're kind of at the same level and you're working towards these goals together, that's an awesome thing. Even if it's just a walking partner, that you can find someone who's interested in doing the same thing, I'd highly recommend that. I'm always recommending working with a qualified fitness professional, if that helps fulfill that other like social connection goal. But there's groups, there's recreation centers, there's ways to be around people in your community while being physically active that I think people either they don't realize or they discount how important that social connection is. So if you can think of those things while you're just setting your goals, I think you'll be not as quick to quit when kind of life gets in the way.
One of my first jobs that I worked that got me introduced to fitness was I worked at the front desk of my local YMCA. And so as a
Yeah.
part of, selling memberships, gym memberships and everything, we gave individuals a free gym orientation. We showed them the facility. We kind of showed them what they have access to and everything like that. And you'd be shocked at how many people are like, "Oh no, like let me just buy the membership and I'll come back." They don't accept the orientation, and especially for
Yeah.
individuals who you can tell like this might be their first time stepping foot in the gym. Maybe they appear a little hesitant walking in the door, but they purchased the membership. And so if you are getting started, definitely take advantage of that if the gym offers it. And if they don't just flat out offer it to you, chances are a staff member is more than willing to show you around if you are new to a gym. And then it doesn't only pertain to fitness in the gym as well. As you mentioned, there are tons of communities out there relating to physical activity and fitness. One of the biggest things that I've seen recently blow up all over social media and all over small towns and everything is run clubs. So for
Uh-huh.
runners of all levels, of all backgrounds, everything, you can show up to these run clubs. They're pretty judgment free. You just kind of hop in with a group, get running, socialize, and so you get your connectedness. You get people who are more experienced than you, maybe less experienced than you, and so you've got a lot of different backgrounds and experience levels. And so that kind of helps build competence because you can learn from a lot of these individuals as well. So that's one area that I've noticed a lot. And then another area that I think can be pretty beneficial to beginners are group fitness classes. Maybe either you can't afford a personal trainer or that might seem a little intimidating to you, that group fitness environment can sometimes be super helpful, usually pretty energetic, and make it a fun experience for you, especially if it's one of your first times getting in the gym. So I would definitely recommend some of those options. And then also explore. Fitness doesn't have to be just weightlifting 3, 4 days a week and hopping on a treadmill for an hour and 50 minutes a week. Find something that you enjoy and find your passion. It's an exploration, it's an experiment, as you said. So I think that a lot of people will benefit from exactly what you said there.
I'll just add one thing to that, which is, and I'm kind of guilty of this myself. Some people, when I talk about that social connection, if they tend to be more of the solitary type, like for me, I don't necessarily like working out with other people. For me, being physically active is a time for me to have like some solitary, like decompression time. I enjoy that. So I don't want it to sound, 'cause I don't want it to sound like you have to exercise with other people if that's not your jam. I get it, because I'm kind of an introvert, and I kind of hold my physical activity time precious as my alone time. So I get it. It doesn't mean that you'll fail. It just means if you're a person who really does thrive on that social connection, being physically active could, with others, could be kind of that missing piece if you've found that you can't stick with it.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing to add. I'm in the same exact boat. I'm very introverted, especially when it comes to the gym. That is my
Mhm.
time in the morning for me to just kind of get ready for the day. I'll throw in the earbuds, turn on some good music or a podcast or an audiobook or something and just do my thing. I don't socialize a lot. If I see people I know in the gym, I might say hi, but I just like getting my workout done and getting out. So if you are more of that introverted style, or maybe you don't feed off of others' energy, or maybe you're just a little hesitant, you just want to try things out on your own, that is fantastic advice. In your experience, and this kind of goes off of what we've been talking about, but why is it so hard for people to start and maintain a regular exercise routine or get in regular physical activity?
From my view, it's because we're not taught about motivation. There's no curriculum, at least that I'm aware of, that as we're kind of coming up in school, that we learn about what it takes to set the environment at the optimal conditions so that you maintain motivation. And it's a learned skill, and it's not something that comes naturally, especially when you consider that human beings, our bodies naturally want to conserve energy. That's the state of homeostasis, is let's get everything, all the conditions optimal, and then let's conserve energy. And so what that means is, let's not go out and run a marathon if we don't have to. Another thing that I think really did a disservice to the whole exercise and fitness industry is, in the several decades ago, actually, when I was kind of coming up in fitness, it was all about the leanness and how you looked, and the cover of Muscle and Fitness magazine, and fitness competitions. It was very much about appearance and weight loss and body composition and leanness. And when a person, if they have that mindset and they start out and they're not already there, it just makes you feel bad. It's like, look, I know that I'd like to accomplish this level of fitness or have this body composition goal, but it's so far away, and it's going to take so much work for me to get there. A lot of times I feel like people get discouraged before they even start and throw their hands up and say, why bother? And so my answer to that is, let's remove the aesthetic part of why a person might want to exercise and focus on all of the wonderful psychological and health benefits that are a result of being physically active. And honestly, the appearance side of it is such a small thing that comes so much later that I would I would rather not even focus on that at all. And I know this from experience because I used to train people in Gold's Gym in Southern California. So I understand where that mindset came from. And I've had to do a lot of work to actually on my own self to not think that way. So I understand. Um, but if we can help people focus on, number one, learn about motivation, kind of the things that I have been discussing, but also focus on the non-body weight or non-body composition benefits of exercise, I think we'll all have a better time.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, those are 2 points that I don't really think about much. I don't think a lot of people do, but growing up, we have physical education class, so we know that exercise is good for us. We have those health classes and everything. Like we all know exercise is good at some level,
Yeah.
but we don't learn about motivation, which is unless you take some psychology courses or it's in your curriculum, but that's very rare. So yeah, that's a great point. And then what you said about kind of more of the physique related goals, I think that in addition to that era early in fitness, I think that's something that is still perpetuated to this day with social media. You see, the most famous fitness influencers are, the greatest looking people, they're shredded to the bone, they're really strong, they're always smiling, they're always active, and so it's definitely perpetuated by social media. I think nowadays you are seeing more and more things about longevity related fitness and health related goals. I think that that's starting to emerge, which I think is a positive thing. However,
Yeah.
I definitely agree with you that that more of the image related goals are very pertinent when it comes to people wanting to start their fitness related journeys. And I feel like it's not a bad thing to have a goal, to improve body composition and to look, I don't want to say better, but that's how people usually phrase it when they come with their fitness goals. But I think that also having a deeper reason behind the goals and learning about motivation, learning about a lot of the mental health and physical health benefits of exercise and physical activity can be just so beneficial for individuals. So yes, I am absolutely with you on that. One thing that you mentioned earlier that I'd love to kind of circle back to is you mentioned building up gradually towards maybe a long-term goal. And there's a saying out there, how do you eat an elephant? Well, you do it one bite at a time, right? Just like with anything, you got to just kind of work your way up to it. And I think that when people start their fitness journeys, they have an idea that they want to be at this end point and they want to get there as soon as possible. Somebody who's starting their fitness journey, what should they look for in terms of obstacles, barriers, and what will their path really look like?
It's definitely not a straight linear line for most people from start to and then just gradually go up and get better all the time and not have any barriers. That's definitely true. Life gets in the way. And even if you think about people who are exercise professionals for a living, we also struggle with keeping consistency. So really, regardless of what kind of exercise program that you settle on, that you decide really resonates with you, consistency is going to be the thing that gets the results over time. And so if you're in a situation where you've been pretty consistent and then life happens and then you drop off, that's going to happen. It's going to happen to every single person, regardless of whether you're a professional athlete or you're a person just getting started or you're an exercise pro who helps other people. And so I would say that before going in, understanding that life is going to get in the way at times, and that there will be instances, stretches even, of time where you're not going to be as physically active as you'd like, or maybe you get injured and you've got to not be physically active at all. But your body is actually pretty good at healing and coming back and getting moving again. So I would just say that, as a coach, that's what I kind of coach my clients on, is the fact that we've decided together on this plan, and this is great. And right now your life looks like this. And so we've designed this, and we've collaborated, and it looks like for the next month or so, this is going to be a great plan for you. And then I will also add in, there are going to be times when this program isn't realistic for you one week. So what might that feel like for you? How might you overcome those barriers? Or how might you get back into it the following week if you had to take a week off? So answering those kinds of questions as you start out on your journey. And it's hard because people are usually so excited in the beginning. They're like, no, I'm committed. I'm going to do this. They don't want to think about what happens if it doesn't really work out as planned. So the sooner you have those honest conversations with yourself, and then come up with some contingency plans or plan B, I think the more likely you are to not just drop off completely when it gets really tough.
My last question to you before we kind of wrap up this episode. Everybody's looking for quick little tips, tricks, and whatever to kind of get things sparked, get things going. So, do you have any fun tips or tricks that you've learned through your career that might spark somebody's motivation, or maybe an activity that they can do to get themselves ready to get exercising, ready to get moving, or kind of just lead to that initial momentum to get them started?
Mm. Well, I'm going to draw on the self-determination theory again, because that theory is pretty cool. If look into it, if you haven't, listeners, it's pretty cool. But one of the tenets of that theory is that human beings naturally want to grow and learn new things. And it's in the seeking out and the learning of something new is when we feel most kind of invigorated, and we're most like engaged in a new task. If we feel like, number one, we're interested in it. Number two, it's kind of fun to learn new things. So for me, and it's helpful in my life, but also with other people, I always encourage them to try to find something that they're maybe always been interested in and wanted to try, but never have, and just dip your toe in. So here's a perfect example. Many years ago, when I was kind of looking for something to do that was physically active and also fun, and also I was just wanting something different. So I don't know if these still exist, but several years ago, there was something called the Groupon. Do you remember that?
Yeah, yeah,
Where
yeah.
you
I
would,
think I still get emails from them in my spam inbox.
okay, well, there you go. So they're still around. So I got this Groupon for come and try this aerial silks, like aerial fitness class. And this is the circus modality where, you hang on silks and you flip around, you do different stuff. But it was for people who had never tried it, and it was kind of for the conditioning aspect of it. So I thought, you know what? That looks amazing. I want to try it. So I cashed in this Groupon, and I went and tried this. And I'm not gonna lie, I was very intimidated and kind of scared. But as a result of that, I ended up going to the class consistently, really becoming good friends with the owner of the studio, and eventually ended up becoming an aerial performing artist as a result of me just being very curious about this one type of physical activity. So I think, now granted, that's a very special case because I was really into it, but who's to say, what if anyone out there has something that they're really interested in, and they just want to like dip their toe in, and they want to learn the very basic beginning skills, and it flourishes into something else that kind of changes their lives. So in my mind, when you're pursuing something new that's interesting to you, that you want to learn, you're really engaged in it. If you can figure something out around physical activity that is really interesting to you, I think that's probably the biggest, kind of most exciting tip I can give.
I think that's a great example and great tip, and what a fun skill to learn too. That sounds so much fun.
It's very
Yeah,
fun,
yeah.
very hard.
I bet. I bet. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join me for this episode of the podcast. Where can people find you on socials or anything like that?
Yeah, on most socials, I'm just at Sabrena Jo. And oh, my cat's making an appearance. On LinkedIn at Sabrena Jo. Um, I think LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook is where I'm most active. So
Okay.
if you type in Sabrena Jo, you'll find me.
All right. All right. Well, thank you very much.
All right. Thanks so much, Jackson. This was fun.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode of the Fitness Blueprint Podcast. Make sure that you subscribe on whatever podcast platform you are listening or watching from, and make sure that you leave a 5-star review and let us know what you'd like to learn next about fitness to help you on your fitness journey.